The second half of July. Hot as hell, pushing 30 degrees, and yet another train wreck in my attempts to start a serious relationship. My boss, sick and tired of looking at my sulky mug every day, made the most reasonable managerial decision possible, to send me the hell away from Moscow for 2 weeks, go have a vacation, as he put it. That's the good thing about being a creative worker. Management sometimes takes care of you like your family. Just maybe a family member with mild mental disabilities. I didn't argue. I was already sick to death of the dusty, sweaty city. Got my vacation pay, packed my stuff, and took off to my grandma's village near Vologda. In my head I had that typical blissed-out fantasy every city dweller gets before a trip to the countryside. Waking up and walking barefoot across wet morning grass, totally at one with nature, inner peace blooming in my soul. But, to be honest, I was also driven by a more mundane reason. My grandmother lived alone, and even though the years didn't seem to be taking their toll on her, I always tried to help out where I could. Model grandson, basically. Grandma was overjoyed to see me, though she scolded me for not warning her in advance. I just dropped in like snow in July. Oh, grandmas! I found myself cornered in a verbal dead end between the classic lines. So, have you at least found yourself a bride? And I'll die without ever seeing great-grandkids. I surrendered and got sent off to gather cranberries and cloudberries in the nearest bog so I wouldn't just laze around while pies browned in the oven. I trudged through the peat marshes, breathing in that incomparable bog aroma. Some people don't like it, but I loved that intoxicating mix of wild rosemary, earthy moss, and a faint swampy mustiness. Ever since I was a kid, I'd never been afraid of going deep into the wetlands. I knew where the truly dangerous places began. The sun was still high when I kicked off my shoes and walked barefoot over warm moss, bending down to pick berries hiding in its thick tufts. I got so carried away with my primitive foraging that I didn't notice the sun sinking toward the horizon, flooding the swamp with crimson light. Everything was drowning in that glow, plants taking on strange golden outlines. I stopped for a moment, mesmerized by the beauty. God, it was good. On the way back, I remembered a scary story my grandma used to tell me every summer when I was little, probably to keep me from wandering too far into the bogs and to make sure I came back before dusk. It went like this. Deep in the heart of the swamp lived a wicked witch in her little hut. She loved catching lost children and baking them in her oven. Helping her in this noble pursuit were black toads, who sniffed out the unfortunate victims. Yeah, sure, it doesn't sound very scary now, but back in my childhood, tales about the Red Hand, the Black Sheet, and other Edward Ouspensky horror stories felt like the ultimate nightmare fuel. We hadn't even heard of your Kings and Lovecrafts back then. I came back with a decent haul of berries for tea, but still got scolded for staying out so late. Honestly, how do grandmas manage to scold their grown-up grandsons with the exact same tone they used when we were 10 years old? Even as an adult, I used to go smoke on the edge of the village and chew mint gum so she wouldn't smell tobacco on me. The next week went by with small chores around the house. I finally got around to fixing the chicken coop, replacing the old half-rotten roost with a fresh beam. I had to endure multiple attacks from the local chicken population, who dive-bombed me like kamikaze pilots, just like Mr. Schmidt. God, how did I used to be afraid of them as a kid? They were all the same, blue-black feathers, heavy beaks, and the temperament of Mephistopheles' personal minions. Anyway, the day came for me to pack up and head back to Moscow. I planned to leave around 8 in the morning to get home before dark. Grandma woke me up with the first roosters, handed me a plastic bucket, and sent me to the coop to gather some eggs to take to the city. At least you'll eat proper village eggs, not that chemical crap from your city stores. I filled the bucket about 3/4 full and was just about to load it into the car when I got another mission. Check the bushes around the house for those divergent hens that like to lay outside the coop. Crawling into a viburnum bush, I locked eyes with 2 huge bulging eyes. A big toad, unusually dark in color, sat there like it owned the place, radiating disapproval toward my very existence. Straight out of Grandma's Swamp Witch stories. I waved my hand at it. No reaction. Brazen little amphibian. "Hey, move it," I said, getting only a croak in response. "Fine." I nudged it gently with my sneaker until it finally hopped away, giving me room to pass. And right where it had been sitting, something white. I looked closer. Just a regular chicken egg. Was she incubating it? Whatever. I shrugged and tossed it in with the others. After the usual goodbye ritual, which included promises to get married within a year, have kids, listen to a lecture on the evils of city life, get blessed, and have the cross traced over me, I hit the road. The trip back took a little over 7 hours. No traffic jams on the MKAD or in the city, lucky me. The heat had driven half the Muscovites out of their homes, fleeing either to their dachas or abroad. I got home in the evening, grabbed a couple of cold dark beers from a pub on the way, dumped the vegetables I'd brought from the village into the fridge, called Grandma to report I was alive, and collapsed on the couch in front of the TV. Too tired to even shower. The bucket of eggs I left in the corner of the kitchen, promising myself I'd sort them into the fridge trays in the morning. I woke up on the couch at dawn, gray light filtering in through the windows. The TV was still murmuring. Something had woken me, a strange crunching sound. I listened. There it was again. It seemed to be coming from the kitchen. Rubbing my eyes, I shuffled toward the sound and promptly stepped in something cold and slimy. What the hell? I reached for the light switch. The little lamp above the table lit up the scene. Half the kitchen floor was littered with broken eggshells mixed with runny yolk and albumin. I froze. My brain raced through possible explanations, but nothing fit. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement behind the fridge. Something alive was hiding there, squeaking faintly and making an odd clicking sound. Suddenly there was a loud pop. The bulb burned out, plunging me into darkness. Cold sweat broke out on my back. On tiptoe, I backed away to the living room, grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and crept back toward the fridge. The beam slid over the floor and landed on a dark, shapeless lump by the wall. The thing began to uncurl in the light, and then a beak-like protrusion popped out, making a noise like metal scraping glass. I dropped my phone, reached for it, and felt a light touch. Out of the gloom emerged my mysterious guest. It looked like a newborn chick, only completely featherless. Relieved, I exhaled. Whatever it was, it didn't seem dangerous. More pitiful, really, an oversized head, awkward little body, barely able to walk, flopping down every few steps. Acting on some deep countryside instinct, I held out my palm. It plopped right onto it, stretched its neck, and let out a plaintive squeak. Holy crap, it's cold as ice. I dug out a small food container, lined it with a napkin, put the little mutant inside, and carried it to my office. I switched on my desk lamp and set the box underneath, making a DIY incubator. It worked, warmed up, the chick fell asleep immediately. Now I could get a good look at him. Bigger than normal chicks. No feathers or fluff, just coarse skin, scaly in places like a lizard. He had wings, but even undeveloped they looked off. And a tail-like appendage. Jesus, a mutant chicken. Could have been in a documentary about Chernobyl survivors. I went back to clean up the kitchen mess. Oddly, for a newborn, this one had quite the kick. He'd managed to toss several eggs out of the bucket. But still, I told myself, maybe it's just a weird hatchling. Nothing supernatural. By the time I finished tidying up, he was still asleep. I sat at my laptop and typed the most original Google query of my life: how to raise a chick at home. The first site drowned me in advice. Set up a small waterer, use a pipette for hand feeding, feed boiled yolk mixed with millet or semolina, feed 6 to 8 times a day. I bolted to the kitchen, boiled some eggs, rummaged around for grains, found half a bag of millet. How the hell do you even cook this stuff? I'd only ever made buckwheat and rice. Decided to wing it, just boiled it in water. First try, disaster, sticky as modeling clay. Second try, success, a nice mush when mixed with yolk. Only problem, no pipette. Cursing, I ran to the nearest 24-hour pharmacy, where I had the weirdest conversation with a sleepy pharmacist. Do you have pipettes for feeding? How many months? What? How old is the child? What child? Who are you feeding? He was just born this morning. Are you insane? Feeding doesn't start until 4 months. Where's his mother? Beats me. Probably wandering around in the bushes somewhere. I ended up buying 3 pipettes anyway, leaving to the muttered comment behind me about damn junkies. Back home, I heard noises from my office. Somehow, the chick had escaped the box and was shuffling across the desk, clicking his beak. When he saw me, he squealed twice as loud and bolted toward the edge. I barely caught him mid-air. Lying in my palm, he just kept chirping. I sighed. Guess I'm a mom now. I fed him the mush. His appetite was insane, like a pelican swallowing a fish whole. I finally put him back in the box, this time on the floor so he couldn't pull a stunt again, and padded the nest with cotton. I decided to let him grow for a while before taking him back to Grandma's historic homeland. He grew fast. Within a week, he'd gotten several times bigger. I finally named him Vaska. A strange name for a bird, but whatever. 2 months in, he'd gotten some feathers, acted more like a dog than a bird, greeted me after work, followed me around, slept in my bed, even brought me things I threw. I'd gotten so attached I barely noticed his weird wings and snake-like tail anymore. One day, while lazing on the couch watching a Harry Potter marathon, I half heard a line, born from a chicken's egg hatched by a toad. Wait. That black toad from the bushes. That egg. Could Vaska? No. That's stupid. But Googling basilisk legend pulled up exactly that. Rooster with bat wings and snake tail, deadly gaze, afraid only of a rooster's crow. I stared at Vaska. He stared back. Yellow eyes, but I didn't drop dead. So either the legend was wrong, or I was immune. And then one night I came home to find my apartment door ajar. Inside, a strange sports bag. From the kitchen came suspicious noises. Vaska was missing. In the kitchen, a large man lying unconscious, Vaska perched on his chest, staring into his face. Long story short, the guy was a burglar. One look into Vaska's eyes, and he swore he died, saw hell, and met the devils, before promising to repent forever. The burglar bolted, leaving behind his bag and wallet. I looked at Vaska. So, you're not just a rooster, you're a guard rooster. A basilisk at that. I scratched him under the beak. Why doesn't your gaze work on me, though? Vaska, as usual, didn't answer. But that's another story.